Back to Biz Talk with Sherman. I'm your host, Sherman On from Hotel Insurance Services. Really appreciate our guests coming on, and glad to be able to talk back with Janet Martinez from Buen, Credito. Welcome back to the show, Janet.
Thanks for having me.
All right, hair looks great. You did something fabulous, it looks like.
Thank you. It's a refresher.
All right, so let's just jump right in, because I know it's important for people to have a look at their credit, especially right now with what's going on. What are some few tips that you have in people maintaining good credit?
Well, definitely, I would say develop healthier financial habits. Just get into the practice of monitoring your credit at least every 2 weeks, or for the most basic part, just monitoring your spending habits. There's different apps that you could do for that, or even from your bank's perspective on the app on the phone, you'll be able to monitor the expenses that you do on a weekly basis. That way, when a month comes by, you'll be able to see exactly what categories are you spending more often. That's one, right? Monitoring your credit report, that's another one. That's a big one. Some people tend to do that every 6 months or even every year. And honestly, that's waiting too far out to monitor your credit report, just in case if maybe you have a late payment and you didn't realize that you actually have one, right? Automatic payments for credit cards, that would avoid getting hit with any late fees, or getting hit with a late payment on your credit report. That could bring it down. It could bring your credit score down up to like 80, 90 points just for one late payment. So we want to try to avoid that with automatic payments. Don't do any hard inquiries unless it's absolutely necessary. So kind of try to leave the emotion part out, and just, unless it's completely necessary, then go ahead and do that. That's what I would say.
Wonderful tips there. So one of the things that kind of is out there, it's known as the college trap when it comes to credit. Tell the audience a little bit about that.
Okay, so students, when they're in college, within those 4-6 years, whatever amount of years that they're in college, they start getting via mail. They start getting either pre-approval letters or invitations to get to apply for credit cards, and they get happy. A lot of them get happy, and it's necessary, yes, to have credit cards, but unless you know how to manage it, or know enough to know which ones you should apply to or not, most of those credit card offers have high interest rates. So to the very least, I would say go ahead and do your research first and compare which one has better reward points, lower interest rates. Not just because you get something in the mail saying that you're pre-approved or an invitation to apply, that doesn't mean that you should automatically go ahead and do it, because you could be hurting yourself instead of helping.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned before, one late payment might drop someone's credit score. What are some other reasons why their credit score might go down?
The credit score can come down. Okay, so late fees, late payments would be one, right? Hard inquiries. So if someone is going shopping for a mortgage or shopping for a car, once you hit that car dealership, they don't tell you necessarily how many times you're going to run your credit. And I've seen clients' credit reports that it could be 10, 20 times for that matter. And that definitely affects your credit score, right? Besides that, if you have your credit utilization rate, if you have it at a max, if you're using over your 30%, which you shouldn't, right? That would affect it as well. So your personal debt, keep it down. That would help have a better credit score.
So taking advantage of the big sale over the weekend, and all of a sudden I go from maybe having $300 on a $1,000 credit limit, and now I'm at $800, that's going to affect my score.
It definitely is going to affect it. But Sherman, I'm not saying, you can't do that, right? But just be strategic about it. If you're going to do it this week, then make sure next week you at least pay half of it, right? Or at least do a minimum payment, and then before the billing cycle ends, go ahead and pay off the balance. That way you use the credit, but you don't get hit with interest.
Now, a big tip here for people that are looking to buy a home. When should they start looking into their credit to make sure that it's at the right place to be?
Okay, that's a great question. I've had clients that honestly, they want to buy a house within 3 months' time, but they haven't checked their credit report within 8 months. So I go ahead and I start by, doing a credit analysis, but then they don't realize that they have a late payment. They have a collection, right? So once you're going to start disputing these negative items, every case is different, but it could take anywhere from 4 to 7 months to get these items removed. And sometimes it's just a matter of just being persistent about it, right? So ideally, I would say, if you're planning to buy a house, I would say at least 6 months ahead of time, at least. That way you give yourself enough enough time to see exactly if there is in fact something that needs to be disputed, or maybe you just need to build up your credit to get better interest rate at the long run.
That's amazing. Great tips here today, Janet. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these with the audience. How can people get in touch with you and your team over there at Buen Credito?
Of course, definitely. Okay, so Paula Buen Credito, you can find us in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well, or the phone number 786-287-3955. Paula Corredor or Janet Martinez, you could find us on social media.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for coming on the show, and look forward to seeing you soon. We're going to take a quick commercial break, folks, and come back, right?